Video games. What's going on, everyone? It's Ty here today, and I want to talk a little bit about what makes a game expensive and rare. Like, what makes video games rare and expensive, and honestly, how it's not always hand in hand. And I feel like I've probably talked about this whole topic across different videos, but I don't feel like I put one where it's all into one video. So I was just kind of composing my thoughts today, and just want to really talk about what I believe makes a game worth an investment. I'm not an investor. I'm just a guy in a Fortnite chair, so let's calm down. If you want real financial advice, don't come here. The real best financial advice I can give you is invest in something that, like the stock market. But investing in games is kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. But I digress on that. I just kind of want to talk about some things that I just thought about in general. Let's start off with making games rare. Now, there's obviously nowadays companies that make games limited run. I'm sure there's others, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there are other companies that do these limited releases or just smaller releases in general. Fangamer has a couple of releases I think they've done. I'm pretty sure. I know they did Bug Snacks, if I'm not mistaken, but then that got a wider release, I believe. And it's just sometimes when a not big publisher is putting out the title, it'll lead to more scarcity, and which includes to rarity. But not every limited run game is expensive. There's a ton of limited run games that are just, I don't know, $30, $40, $50, $60 games. A lot are not worth more than what was bought. So over time that might change, but there are also some that are worth a pretty penny. But I digress on that. But there was a company called Limited Rares, and their goal was to release games for one day and then stop. And they went bankrupt the first time they did it because no one could tell if it was a joke. Because on April 1st, 2019, they put out Poop Slinger, and this is a PS4 game, and it only sold 84 copies. I'm not kidding, it is called Poop Slinger, and yeah, 84 copies. This game goes for about $1,000. Definitely the rarest PlayStation 4 game. But the thing is, this game was made with the intention of it being likely rare. Obviously, they could have sold 1 million. It wasn't really rare, but it might have still been expensive. That kind of leads me to my next point. Rare doesn't equal expensive, and expensive doesn't equal rare. I mean, kind of goes back and forth. I think Pokemon is the best prime example of something that is definitely not rare. There are millions of these cartridges, but they go for a pretty good amount. Obviously some titles did better than others, but still, for the popularity is what holds Pokemon's value. And honestly, you can say the same for a lot of Nintendo stuff. Some of these games sold a ton, but are still worth about what you paid for, or not far from it. So it's pretty impressive, Nintendo's grasp. That kind of leads to my next point, is that a lot of rare games are not from Xbox or PlayStation. Now I know that's ironic that I just mentioned it, but I guess I would say nowadays Xbox and PlayStation. I'm sure there are and will be down the line some PS4 games that have found out to be more obscure and such, but at the moment a lot of these just don't hold their value, especially on Xbox's end, but they're kind of doing that themselves with Game Pass, which isn't bad. I honestly think it's more healthy that these games are not $60 10 years after they come out. But yeah, I just kind of want to talk about some other rare games, some cases that what made them truly rare. And I should have talked about it a little bit in my last video. If you don't know, I got Devil's Third, a sealed copy. You can kind of see it behind the Pikachu card up there. Not really, but I do have Devil's Third now, and Devil's Third is very interesting. It is a not really common game anywhere, but in the European copies are much more easy to come by. In the US, this game was not easy to come by just at all. It definitely has one of the roughest launches in just history. I feel Nintendo America, first of all, did not give any review copies, so people had to wait until the game dropped to play it and review it. And then you actually had to get one. Online on GameStop, apparently it goes that no joke. I feel like everything in this video so far just sounds like a complete joke. There was only 420 copies available and online, and then it was super limited in stores. So it's kind of just a recipe for no publicity and no access to it, which is not bad. I mean, I've seen gameplay of the game. Is it the worst game ever? No. Is it the best? Good God, no. So, you know, did they do themselves a favor? Did it really matter? It was the Wii U late into the life of it, so I don't know. Next up, another game I have is the Fire Emblem 3DS, Fire Emblem Fates 3DS Special Edition. Now, this is kind of similar, but not totally the same. This game is not nearly as rare as Devil's Third, if I'm not mistaken. You can definitely find, you can find like pretty much all these games I'm talking about at the moment. There is one that it's a little harder to get. But like a lot of rare games you can easily find online. It's just maybe not a ton of them. But with the internet, it makes rare games more being about an expensive game. And I think that's just the reality of it. Rare doesn't mean like, oh, it's impossible to find, which I think a lot of people misconstrue. It's more so rare, so now it has a price factor. It's not as common as other games. But going back to Fire Emblem Fates, it came out during the time Nintendo still didn't totally trust the Fire Emblem brand, despite Awakening doing pretty good. So they wanted to release it. They gave it a special edition, only sold through, I believe, GameStop and Nintendo's own website. I could be wrong on that, but it was a pretty limited release. And I mean, yeah, it's super wanted because it has all 3 games on one cartridge, one of them being digital only on the eShop otherwise. With the eShop closing down, it's even more wanted, but this was known that it was going to be wanted for that reason when it came out. And then obviously Fire Emblem's grown even more, so you have the niche people, like the people that are playing it was still really niche, and the people that are existing now, they both want it. It's kind of just a recipe for everyone wanting it, and they didn't make enough, and we're in a situation where they're not going to reprint more, especially now. So that's what makes that game kind of rare. Nintendo kind of made the special edition rare because they didn't believe in it. That's obviously not exact quote from Nintendo, but for how hard this thing was to get and how limited it was, it's pretty clear to me they didn't have full trust in it. Next, one that's probably very well known on this channel, Barbie Grooming Glam Pups for the 3DS, the rarest 3DS game. Yeah, this thing, so if I'm correct on how the story goes, so this game is pretty common. I see a lot of people talking about the DS one, finding the DS one. It's not the same, obviously. The 3DS one, from my understanding, was only released in Canada and like a super tiny amount. Some people say it was an accident. I don't really know how you accidentally make a 3DS game. Doesn't really make sense to me. That's about all I know, is that it was only released in Canada in a super tiny amount. Next, Skylanders Spyro's Adventure for the Wii U, a game that I also have, and I gotta get a new case for. Probably, like, truly, I would say rarer than Devil's Third, at least online. You can't really find a ton of these, especially complete. Finding the box with the Skylanders and everything in it is pretty tough. It is pretty hard, and I'm still out there looking just to find the box for it, let alone if I could get another complete one, I'll gladly just get it. I would like it. I'm a big Skylanders fan. So yeah, that would be cool to get. But anyways, this was a Japanese exclusive, the Wii U version. Not the Wii version or any other console, but the Wii U version, published by Square Enix there. Yeah, Toys R Us only in Japan. Kind of a similar story is that of Barbie Grooming Them Pups, only in one region, and probably didn't get a huge release because I believe Giants was already out at the time. On the Wii U, I mean, the Wii U kind of just probably didn't have much of an incentive to totally go all out on it. But hey, if you can find one, I would get one now. Even if you can't play it, it's kind of a weird novelty. And I believe that makes the Wii U the only console that technically can play every single Skylanders game, which is very interesting to me. And more Skylanders talk, we have a Skylander game on the Switch that has kind of intrigued me. Skylanders Imagineers on Switch goes for like $100 plus, like way over, almost probably $200 if I'm not mistaken. This was a launch title of the Switch. Similar to Skylanders Spyro Adventure on the Wii U, this game was already out. I want to say like a couple months, maybe even a year. I'm not quite too sure. The series was really dying at this point as well. And I mean, although the Switch launch was pretty barren, aside from, I would say, 1-2 Switch and Breath of the Wild, obviously. Breath of the Wild and 1-2 Switch was kind of enough for a good amount of people, so seeing Skylanders probably didn't, was like, oh, I gotta pick up Skylanders, what am I gonna do after Breath of the Wild? Like, no, I mean, you either cared about Skylanders and already got it, or didn't, and yeah, it just didn't sell well, probably didn't make a ton because it wasn't selling. Perfect case for a rare game. I don't think they had any intention to make it rare. I'm sure they wanted it to sell because I'm sure they're like, oh, what are people going to do after Breath of the Wild? No, but in all seriousness, I think this is a rare case of something that probably wanted to do really good and just ultimately failed. And that is another way games become rare, is that they just fail. Earthbound. This game has blown up in the last just years. I mean, when it came out, it was super niche. I believe it's only like 150,000 sold is what I estimate online. And now this game goes for such a ridiculous amount for, honestly, 150,000 in terms of the ratio to how many people probably want one is probably a pretty bad ratio. There's definitely way more people that want it that can get it. But I just think out of like every game, for how expensive this game can get, it's kind of insane. And it's just crazy to me, like, the power it can hold. I mean, like, this game goes for like hundreds, if I'm not mistaken, so I guess be on the lookout for it. I'm pretty sure most of y'all know, look out for Earthbound. Another series I want to talk about, and this one is one that's confused me, and that is Yokai Watch. Yokai Watch, out of all the 3DS games, has probably been the one that's most talked about. And it's kind of weird to me. It's in a weird situation because I definitely think it'll be looked back at a series that people neglected. But I just have genuinely no clue how rare the second entry in the game is. The second entry has 3 different games here in the West. And I have absolutely no clue how well they did. From my understanding, Bony Spirits and Fleshy Souls did okay, but yet now they've increased in price. You used to be able to get those for an easy $20. I was snagging a couple of these for $20 like once a week, and now, because I have multiple, I guess it got bad for a minute. I don't know what happened. Now they're like $40, and it's like, that's kind of crazy to me. Psychic Spectre is the second entry here. That is pretty hard. Was pretty hard to find on eBay for a long time, and online in general. And then it got super common. I'm not really sure where it's at now. Same with Yokai Watch 3. It was like really hard to find online. Then all of a sudden, boom, it's everywhere. Same with Yokai Watch Blasters. It's really hard. That one was really difficult to find online, and now it's everywhere. And when I'm saying everywhere for these 3 games, it's like, it's not literally everywhere, but there is over like quintuple the amount of listings there were back in, I would say, February and March. So I don't really know how many there are out there. I definitely think I had a misconception on how rare a lot of the Yokai Watch games were, because at the time when I was making some of my earliest videos, there was literally like no listings for Yokai Watch blasters. I was really pumped about that because there was no listing. Like, oh wow, this is an insanely rare game. And I think it is still an insanely rare game, just definitely way more common than I thought, but not actually common, just more like there is more than 5 of these out there. And then the last type of rare game I want to talk about is games that had no intention to even become games. And I'm talking about things like the World of Nintendo Champion card everyone talks about, and those little funny haha kiosk carts. I don't know if you could really see that, but yeah, this is a not-for-resale Kirby Extra Epic Yarn. I always gotta talk about when I can talk about it. This is my pride and joy. This is probably my like actual rarest video game item. I have yet to really... I've seen like 2 people get one, and then I saw one listing online. So like honestly, I only know about 5 of these. So if there's other people out there with this one, and I'm gonna have to specify this, the not for resale one, it says not for resale on the cartridge, because people keep telling me, oh, this game, I have this game, and they talk about the normal one. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the not for resale. If you have the not for resale one, please join the Discord, link in the description below, and show me, because I really want to see more of them. I would really like to know how many are in just out there. This is definitely one of the rarest like 3DS items you can actually get your hands on. If you want one yourself, there's one on eBay right now for $700 or something like that. I don't recommend buying it for that much. It is, I'll for once say, it is literally free on the eShop. But I digress on that. Those are games that never were even meant to be games sold. They were either prizes, not the kiosk carts, but like those things like the Nintendo tournament things, the champion cartridges. The people that won those never probably wanted them to sell it, and obviously the games that they actually played them on, where you can like switch them. I believe that's the gray ones. Obviously they never had any intent on getting those out, but clearly they did too. And that was made rare because they only needed 6. You know, these kiosk carts were, some of them are rarer than others because they only needed a few. They were literally sent back to be destroyed. It's accidental rarity that I'm sure someone was probably like, oh, this will get out. I'm sure they probably thought about it, but they weren't like thinking, oh, this will get out and I'm gonna hold on to them and I'm gonna make $1 billion. No, it's just accidental, which is a weird way to think about it, but that's kind of what I've told myself. But yeah, this has been my little ramble on rare games, what makes a game rare. I guess one additional thing I want to mention is I did have a comment, I can't remember, I'll maybe throw it up if I can find it, but yeah, talking about a lot of times rare games are bad, and that's true because they don't sell, and people don't have faith in it, so that it'll either not sell and get more copies, or it didn't get a lot of copies because they knew it wouldn't sell. And it is very true, a lot of the rarest games out there sometimes are terrible. And I'm sure I could go on and on about things like the GameCube. A lot of the GameCube games are really expensive, but not all of them are entirely rare. You know, like things like Luigi Mansion are still like $60-70, but it's a pretty common GameCube game, and that's a mix of nostalgia, people wanting it, and although it's not necessarily rare, the system itself didn't do too great, so there's a smaller ecosystem. It's GameCube gets a little complex, but there's some extremely niche stuff like Cubivore and Chibi Robo that are very expensive titles. But yeah, that's a totally different topic that maybe I can make a part 2 on this. I mean, obviously I didn't even touch Sega stuff. Some of that Sega stuff is crazy. I didn't talk about earlier PlayStation stuff, but that is all for another time. And I've some of the stuff in this video kind of relates to some of that stuff I didn't talk about. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little ramble. I can't believe this went on for about 20 minutes. Thank you so much if you made it this far in the video. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I think Sonic Adventure at like my local game store was like $400. Sonic Adventure 2, that's scary. It was like $400, $250, I don't remember, but it was a lot.